Hey guys, so I just had to rewatch this incredible film after so many years, pun intended. It has, I mean, it's impressive to know that this is a film made in 2003, which is nearly 20 years ago. And honestly, it stands to be better than a lot of the writing and the choreography and also the filmmaking and even acting of a lot of the superhero films, I would say, that is made today. Now, first of all, the ones that I can mainly compare with is the entire Phase 4 of Marvel, because that's the perfect comparison of what not to do. But aside from them, even against prior films, even against the likes of a lot of DC films, this Hulk made in 2003 really stands out to be quite a, how can I put this? Like a film that carries its own weight. You know, it tells its own story. It has its own characters who you can feel are very real. It may not be extremely true to the source material in certain points and moments, but it has its way of building its own story that makes you feel like it's just reading another new kind of comic. So the one unique thing about the comics is that we always know that no two stories are exactly the same because all the comic authors have to come up with some of their own variations to keep their story fresh, to keep readers involved, especially when you want to retell the origin stories of a lot of superheroes. It's not going to be the same all the time. And on top of not only the origin being the same, sometimes you have to add on certain side characters, remove certain side characters, just to try to tell your own story in your own unique way while trying to do justice to the character that's been established over many years. It's a really difficult yet tricky thing, and that's why there are good comics, there are bad comics, there are favorite comics, and what's not. But when turning it into a film, it's extremely important to get the best version out of those, because you're not going to be making a film as often as a comic, and it's really incredibly expensive to make a film. And also, just considering when you're making a superhero film, all the VFX that's going to be involved and all of that. So after rewatching this film, I must say that it probably is the best version of the Hulk. And I know you may think that you like the new, what do you call this, Hulk from the Avengers, from whatever other trash films that he's involved in, or maybe some of you actually liked what do you call this, the in between Hulk that was made with Edward Norton. Now, I think Edward Norton is a very good actor, first of all, but I do not think that Hulk story is very well done, especially not compared to this first initial Incredible Hulk movie. I don't think it deserves the rating that it has, which is a 5.6, which is incredibly low for a story that is told really, really well. I would think that, I mean, if I were to personally rate this film, I'd probably just be rating it a 6, I think, because it's not the most impressive film, or maybe even a 5, I think, to be fair, because it's not the most impressive film, but at the same time, it has done justice in a way that a lot of films today can't keep up. And perhaps at the time, especially considering it was released shortly after Spider-Man 2, and films like Iron Man and all that came out. And in comparison to those stories, the Hulk could not really keep up because it had a lot of like these long moments where Hulk had spent just running away from the military that probably could have been used to show us a lot more things. But I think they wanted to keep the damage to the minimal. They didn't really want to show Hulk destroying or rampaging across the city just because they knew that they had limitations with the VFX at the time, and they probably could not commit to such huge decisions like Man of Steel, which could go all out because they had such an amazing visual effects team. Hulk probably was not able to afford such destruction. So despite having all these skyscrapers in the poster with the Hulk in the front, they had no Hulk involved with these skyscrapers destroying them or anything like that because they were not capable of doing that. Instead, the story was very grounded to to this scientist who's Bruce Banner, who's just trying to make his way, go about his day basically, not knowing what lies within him and what causes him, especially him, to turn into the Incredible Hulk. So what I mean by I don't think it deserves the 5.6 on IMDb is that usually people in IMDb rate films a lot higher than what I do. If I rate things a 5, usually they would go for a 7 or 8. So I think this thing definitely deserves a higher rating on, overall. But for me, compared to all the films that I've watched, compared to the likes of so many other films like, BBS, Godfather, all of these really, really difficult films to make with incredible actors, high budgets, incredible score. Even I think Spider-Man 2, all of these films are just too good to compare. Not actually, I shouldn't have used Godfather there because it's just a good movie. It's not a superhero movie, but I think if I do want to use a very good superhero movie, it's probably Spider-Man 2. It's probably I guess a lot of the animations were pretty good. The X-Men animated series and those sorts of things, right? So I think this is sort of in the average, although I think as personal preference, I'm just going to give it a 6, just because I feel that it told a compelling story, especially a tale between a father that had made a mistake and created a son who is a monster, and that is the interesting story that was, sort of inside the story of this initial 2003 Hulk, which I really really enjoyed rewatching. So when I first watched this Incredible Hulk, I mean this Hulk story, I was in school at the time. And so obviously I did not understand the whole story, the entire point of the story and all the undertones that it's trying to convey. But now I actually managed to grasp it. And I think a lot of you who have not watched this film in at least 10 or 20 years should definitely rewatch it because it is an incredible movie. And I think this is the best version of Hulk done so far. And I'm comparing this also to the Lou Ferrigno Hulk, which I had watched. Of course, recently I wasn't. I'm not that old, guys. But Lou Ferrigno's Hulk is also pretty well done because obviously no VFX at the time. But yeah, this is pretty cool. So just to remind you guys of how the story goes, basically, David Banner is the father of Bruce Banner. He comes up with an experiment, a super soldier, not really super soldier. He's doing an experiment for medical sciences, but he's working under a military contract. And so yes, as the story goes, he's working for some kind of a super soldier serum. But of course, he hopes that he could just help improve humanity as a whole. His intention is not really military, but the military wants to use it for military. And so he doesn't get the approved contract to test it on human subjects, which is what he wants to push to. It fails the chance to go to human trials, very much similar to what Norman Osborn suffers in Spider-Man 2, which is why it's very closely related in that sense. Because, yeah, Spider-Man 2 just came out, like, I'm sorry, Spider-Man, the initial Spider-Man, Tobey Maguire's first Spider-Man film, which came out just a few years prior. And so it is very much related in the sense where this guy is also working on some super soldier serum. He also fails to get the trial human trials, what do you call this, approval, and so he tests it on himself. But apparently nothing happens. He somehow survives testing it on himself, but he does find out that there's strange things going on inside his body, which he can't quite use it or harness it in any way, just because his serum is incomplete. However, his wife gets pregnant all of a sudden and realizes he's going to have a child. And so instead of telling her to abort the baby in fear of what the child might be or what it might turn out to be, um, he allows the baby to be born. And so, as a result of Bruce Banner being born, he monitors the child very closely. Only later on for the military to discover that he had gone to human trials and bans his entire production and research and what's not. And so once he's thrown out, he basically escapes and becomes some sort of a vagabond, while Bruce Banner is sent to live at I guess some kind of foster family and grows up to become an incredible scientist by himself because it is in his blood to be such a genius, right? And so Bruce Banner is working on this his own technology, which is to try to improve human healing to allow them to treat cancer and all kinds of other diseases, they believe. And so one day the experiment goes wrong. His friend gets trapped inside the chamber where the gamma radiation is going to be released. He goes to protect his friend by just throwing his body in front of these gamma machines, and so his body absorbs the radiation, and it triggers the already existing serum inside him, and that turns out to be the catalyst, which allows him to become the Incredible Hulk. And just the build up to the initial story alone is incredible because they tell you how much Banner just struggles to control his anger on a daily basis because of his pre-existing childhood trauma, none of which She-Hulk especially doesn't have. And I'm sorry I have to use this as a comparison, but I think writers have to be reminded of how good stories are actually written. And this is a prime example of a great story. And so it's not only that, it's also, of course, Jennifer Connelly. Oh God, she's just so beautiful looking. But she's there driving the story as his lab partner and also the daughter of the military colonel who is in charge of making sure things don't go wrong. And so they do eventually end up hunting for the Hulk, while his father is also after him. So David Banner is apparently still alive. He sends some dogs that he's been experimenting on after Bruce Banner. Banner turns into the Hulk to fight them off, and his father is sort of satisfied knowing that his son actually has turned into this creature that can tap into the effects of whatever serum that he was working on. And so his father is hunting after him, the military is hunting after him. Banner tries to flee, only to eventually be captured by the military, being betrayed by his own love, who is played by Jennifer Connelly. What is it exactly? Betty Ross, right? So Betty Ross is his lab assistant. She betrays him and hands him over to Colonel Ross, her father. And so they take him and try to continue doing experiments to him to try to extract the Hulk's genes from him. However, it is not as simple as the terms used to create She-Hulk, because in this case, Banner already had the serum in him at birth, right? He was born with it in his genes. So even if they were to extract his blood, it's not as simple as just putting it into someone else to turn them into the Hulk. So this Hulk is a lot more complex in the sense where he had this perfect storm, where he had a childhood trauma, he had this inner rage in him that he had to control. He had a lot of people bullying him in his workplace and stuff like that, stress, things that just irritated him throughout. And even this guy Talbot, who tries to hit on Ross, and he's some kind of ex-military guy who's working on some medical contracts, especially. So he tries to be as irritating as he can, just to be that kind of extra boyfriend character. I don't know. I think I gotta call them extra boyfriends, and I think that's gonna be a term. So he's the extra boyfriend in this film. A lot of American films back then had these extra boyfriends, and so he tries to come in and be an absolute asshole, as he's what he's supposed to be, and he plays a pretty good role at it as well. And so with all of this pressure and tension building on, it's the perfect storm to turn Bruce Banner into the Hulk. It's not just the serum, it's not just the experiment gone wrong, but also the emotional stress that he has gone through, which is what they explain in a certain scene where Banner says it doesn't make sense as to why the anger is triggering the serum. And Betty says, because he says that the serum is supposed to only work on physical trauma. And so Betty explains to him that perhaps certain mental traumas can also be manifested physically, and that's what's causing the serum to trigger. So all these little points is adding to the science fiction that is behind creating the superhero, right? It's not just, oh, poof, magic. You got the serum, so you became Hulk. No, there is actual science involved between these scientists, and there's certain discussions just to give us that lore. It's not necessary that they do that, but they want to give it to you anyway because they want to give you reasons to talk about this character, to try to understand this character, to think that this can be as realistic as it should be for you to have the Hulk made into a believable character. And so they actually create these little information pieces which they add on to tell you that is the mental trauma that's actually triggering this serum that was initially created to be triggered by physical trauma, but also the super soldier serum that's already in his body that went or got triggered in a wrong way because of the nanomites, which is part of their experiment, and the gamma radiation. So all of that creates this incredible Hulk, something that can't simply be recreated. So the only other person who has this formula, the initial super soldier formula inside their body, is of course David Banner, who's the father of Bruce Banner, who I can't seem to locate. I have the young David Banner here, but I don't have the older one. Regardless, also an incredible actor. He is sort of the villain of the story. He tries to go after the Hulk by using the same chain of what do you call this experiment that resulted in the Hulk, and he applies it to himself by sucking in the nanomites, turning on the gamma radiation. But instead of turning into the Incredible Hulk, he turns into Absorbing Man, who is an incredible villain in the story nonetheless. And so I do have certain shots in the film, but I'm a little bit concerned about copyright, and so I decided let's do it in a separate video just in case I don't want the entire review to be taken down with this. And so I'm not sure if I want to run a watch party with you guys. I'm not really sure. I don't really have enough people watching this for me to run a watch party, but perhaps it will be something I'll be doing in the future, depending on how well this video does. But regardless, Absorbing Man turns out to be the villain, and he's an incredible villain played by an incredible actor, who really you can see the tension, in the father and son discussion, and especially when Bruce realizes how his mother died, which is, the father ends up killing her in an accident when the father was actually trying to kill him. And so he was actually just trying to, undo his mistake as a scientist. But the mistake involves a life, the life of his son. Something that, as a mother, obviously Bruce's mother would want to protect him because it's just her motherly instincts kicking in, telling her to do the right thing, which is to protect the child. But the father, being the scientist that he is just overwhelmed by the guilt of the mistake of allowing his DNA to be transferred into this child who may yet to be a monster. And having his entire lab shut down, he's unable to find a cure for his son, which is what he was working on. And knowing that if he's not able to find a cure, something evil or bad might go and happen. And so he tries to kill his son, ends up killing the mother, and that is, adds on to the childhood trauma that Bruce has. And so all these incredible things that has already happened in his past builds on to make him this unstoppable mean green machine. And man, the VFX, like a lot of people can argue that the Hulk looks plastic, but 20 years ago, this looked absolutely incredible. The lighting, the effects, even the visual effects team taking a dig at us sometimes, just showing us certain scenes in a very unique, stylized way, which I absolutely, adore. Because right now I'm also working with visual effects in my own respective job, and so it really is, just insane. And also, this film had a very, I really enjoyed this style of filmmaking, which is where they showed certain scenes in a comic-esque moment. And let me actually just pull that one up for you. I think I have the footage over here, I believe. Yeah. So this is a shot from the movie itself, where the visual effect team is just taking a dig at this. There are so many scenes that you can actually find where it's like a comic book almost, where they actually crop to two separate shots. This shows the expressions of different characters at the same time, but also telling the story simultaneously in the way a comic book would be told. And I believe there's another shot somewhere along this. You know what? Let's just play this through a little bit. So this is the footage from the original Incredible Hulk, or rather original Hulk 2003. But yeah, look at this. Okay, this shot where they divide the scene into like three parts, right? This is a trend that happens throughout the movie. And so yeah, this one like this. So this is a trend that happens throughout the movie where they actually crop certain scenes into like three parts or four parts even, or several parts even, just to show us, this very comic style filmmaking, which I absolutely enjoy. And I think a lot of comic book movies should just do this, to just box it into us that they are in fact taking a comic book film. And the way they show this different depiction of shots, it really reminds me of the way BVS was done, and the way Zack Snyder especially took a lot of his films, because he actually stays true to this comic style visual, storytelling, which I think after this Hulk 2003, a lot of films never really went back to this. This is an incredible way to just tell you that this is how you guys, you kids read the comic. Watch it on the screen right now, and it's just incredible. It's just fan service at its best. This is real fan service, right? Not just bringing back a bunch of Spider-Man just because it's nostalgia and trying to, you know, get money off it without actually telling a compelling tale. This is telling you a compelling tale, showing you what real, you know, uh, so kind of a throwback actually is to the way comics are built. And so, yeah, Absorbing Man and him duke it out towards the very end. There are some in-between scenes as well and moments. The story really picks up after the first hour and sort of rushes through the scenes where the military try to capture and torture him. But very soon after, they manage to capture him because Dr. Ross, his lab partner, actually tries to soften him up, and he turns back to regular Banner form. They allow him to get captured. Military tries to execute him and his father at the same time to kill them. But of course, his father uses his powers to absorb the electricity that is supposed to kill them, allowing him to have enough time to turn into the Hulk. And the father takes him away to try to kill him, absorb his powers once and for all. But it turns out he can't absorb the Hulk's powers just because there's too much rage in the guy. And so, yeah, Absorbing Man explodes, Hulk escapes, survives, and the story comes to a close. And so, the following movie with with Edward Norton, I honestly feel did not do the original film justice, just because it told the story in a much better way, had much better acting, better characters, better story, and yeah, honestly, the visual effects was incredible for this. I really can't go, into any better ways of saying this, because you may want probably an actual visual effects guy to try to sit down with you and run through it. Maybe someone from Corridor Crew might be the right people to justify this. But what I can say, having with working with the visual effects crew separately, not in filmmaking, the one I work is with gaming. regardless, it's impressive when I look at it. It's very realistic, and some of it I can see is really very well done on the comic sense. So yeah, it's pretty cool. It's pretty amazing. So honestly, I have to still give this the rating that I feel is justified as a film, and so it is a 6 out of 10 for me, having watched this after so many years. But for those of you guys who have not watched a good comic book film in a long time, please watch this. This is a really good movie. It tells a really good story. The build up, the perfect storm that it took to create the Hulk. Not just getting some blood spilled on your hand and all of a sudden you turn to the Hulk, or oh, I'm a woman so I have to control my anger on a daily basis. No, look at the trauma that Banner has to go through, right? It's not about just being catcalled or being afraid that you're going to get mugged in the street. It's not it. There's so much brutality that happens to him his entire life. He's been fleeing from the military, afraid, having to look behind his back, basically the entire time, being betrayed by his own love interest, being betrayed by his father, seeing his mother killed before his eyes as a child, having no childhood, good childhood memory. All of his good memories got erased by that one bad incident to the point he can't even remember himself being a child. And then yet, despite all that, drowning himself in work, which I believe is sort of a way that he overcomes his trauma, becomes an incredible scientist, a biotech scientist, and then dives to protect his friend, from being exposed to gamma radiation. And this perfect storm is conjured where he turns into the Incredible Hulk. What better way to build up for a character and to turn them into a guy who learns to control that insane anger and harness it to become a hero. In this story, he is shown to be a hero in very few scenes, which is the only reason I can't really call this too much of a superhero movie. But I don't think the Hulk really calls itself a superhero movie, yet just trying to tell you the origin story of a character who is this perfect storm. And as Banner realizes, he eventually learns to control the Hulk better and better. And I believe at the end of the film, has sort of almost perfected it in a sense where I believe he knows that he can target, or rather channel the Hulk to a specific target, which is what is shown in the Incredible Hulk movie with Edward Norton. Incredible Hulk? Yeah, 2008, Edward Norton, this film. This is the film where he actually channels that anger and points it at the Abomination to go for that battle. But honestly, yeah, this movie is not as written as well as this one. This is something else, guys. So yeah, go and rewatch this if you have not. I highly recommend it. This is an amazing movie and something that I think is unfortunately a film or writing style or filmmaking style that we're not going to be seeing for a good long time. And unfortunately, Zack Snyder is off DC, so we're not going to be getting any kind of film like that from DC as well. And I believe the Russo brothers are occupied with a lot of other films, and so I don't think they're going to be writing any compelling stories to Phase Four, for anyone else to tell. So yeah, that's it from me for this one. Hope you guys have had a great week and a great weekend. Here's another weekend film for you. Hopefully, I'm not too late. That's it for me. See you guys in the next one. Do hit a like and subscribe so that I know if you guys are interested in more content like this, so that I know if I do a watch party, I will be having people who would like to join and discuss these sorts of things. I'm really interested, and I would really like it, have another discussion perhaps on how a lot of films today involve too much politics, too much agenda, and they don't really tell the story of an individual or the character. Like, if this happened to a woman per se, regardless of their race or whatever, or their identity, if it told the story of that woman having gone through this trauma, having gone through this kind of style of past, whatever unique trauma it may be, having that compelling storytelling would build up to an amazing character, regardless of who they are. So I think that's the most important thing that has to be remembered, and not just because I want to tell a story with a different race or a different gender. I think that point has to really be understood. And I think I couldn't have said it better than the way it was shown in BBS, which is this.
On this earth, every act is a political act.
And I think, yeah, that pretty much summarizes it. So I'll see you guys in the next one. Take care.